Hello everyone, welcome to my latest forecast. Today we're talking about the Capricorn Full Moon happening July 13th at 11:37 a.m. Pacific Time. And before I begin, check what house Capricorn is at in your chart. That's where you're bringing something to fruition or completion or realizing a goal, which is what Capricorn often represents. And before I begin with the entire forecast, if you want a reading from me, please check out my website. The link is below. I just opened my calendar. I have a bunch of time slots all the way through the rest of the year. I just quit my corporate job doing astrology full time now, so I'm here to serve you. I also offer mini readings as well. So sometimes I'm overbooked there, so you might have to submit a few times, but I promise I will get to you. And in cases where I do not actually get to your mini reading, you are automatically refunded. So you're not ultimately going to pay for a reading until I upload the video for you. But just to be clear, those mini readings are 15-minute videos that I upload, which is a short synopsis, but very detailed and granular synopsis of your chart. So those can be incredibly useful if you're mostly just curious about astrology, you're not totally sure if you want to commit to a full session yet. However, the full sessions are always very insightful. So let's get into the full moon. So a full moon, anytime we have one, we're seeing things to a conclusion, we're bringing things to a close, we're letting go and often realizing something at its fullest potential. The full moons can actually be great for manifestation. What makes the Capricorn full moon very special is that this is actually a time of year, whenever there's a Capricorn full moon, when people are kind of willing to let go of or walk away from a career that they have kind of seen through, where they've realized a specific, they've set out with a specific goal of like, I want to be, I wanted to get a promotion, or I wanted to complete this project. And now that it's done, I'm really ready to look for a new job or look for a new career or just completely recalibrate. So a lot of people are undergoing that right now. And I think on the full moon, they will be kind of realizing where they want to go next. And that really dovetails with the Mars-Uranus North Node conjunction at the end of this month, at the end of July. That's actually, to me, a mass exodus when people are just going to be leaving their jobs very quickly in droves. I think it's actually going to be quite a seismic shift in the economy. And there's going to be a number of driving factors to that. And I'm actually going to do a separate video just on that conjunction. So hang tight with that. But the point here is that this full moon is the realization that that you've done enough in at least in that career, in what you've achieved something that you set out to achieve. But Capricorn always has a longer term that it's eyeing. So you're still ascending, you're still getting to the top, but you understand that you have to make a pivot now in order to reach that point. So I really think a lot of people are coming to a major ending in their career, and they've reached that milestone that leaves you looking elsewhere for that next peak, like I said. But now let's dig deeper into the meaning of this full moon. So we have the Capricorn-Cancer axis being activated. So the new moon in Cancer happened 2 weeks earlier, then now we have the full moon in Capricorn. Cancer is the womb, the roots, the home, the family. It's very insular and hyper-aware of their emotions. Capricorn, on the opposite side, is quite sensible, responsible, and deferential. Deferential to authority figures. It's asking for permission to do things. But it's also about delaying gratification for the sake of long-term success. So whereas Cancers will kind of sit with their emotions and do pretty much anything to make sure that they're emotionally protected, Capricorns will just keep pushing out pushing at their work life and trying to kind of chip away at that until they, again, reach that peak. So so Capricorns deprioritize emotions, sensitivity. Sometimes they are unaware of their vulnerabilities, quite willingly though, because theoretically these are roadblocks and hindrances to reaching that to that ascent. Now, this full moon though is conjunctive Pluto, so this is the most important aspect of this entire full moon. So Pluto deals with deep emotions. And on the full moon being about a culmination, this really equates to a deep emotional release. So how does that make sense with what I just explained about Capricorn, right? That is the sort of the conundrum of this full moon. So Capricorn, when you have a Capricorn moon in your birth chart, you kind of do put up these walls because you're not prioritizing the emotions. It's not that Capricorn moons or Capricorns don't have them. It's just that those emotions need to be kind of staved off if they're going to persist through reaching that career milestone or reaching that point of achievement, because Capricorn is concerned with building a legacy or building something that stands the test of time. That's the essence of Capricorn. That's the prime directive. And so, of course, how can you do that if you admit your vulnerabilities? I mean, it's not clear how that would happen. So, but in comes Pluto. It's retrograding at the same time that this full moon is moving through the zodiac. And so there's almost like a collision here of the moon and Pluto, which is ultra sensitive. And if we think about this Capricorn mission of ascending, this Pluto energy, which Pluto is about destruction and transformation, we're understanding here that the ascent is not sustainable without tending to our vulnerabilities or disentangling from coping mechanisms or without recognizing our deeply rooted wounds and psychological scars. So Pluto brings the subconscious to our consciousness, and it actually points out that there is this undeniable decay or defect in our foundation, in our system. So as you're going and climbing and trying to reach that next promotion or that next career path, you're trying to pivot, this is a psychological pivot to say that, okay, how do I make the long-term journey sustainable? If I'm trying to work until I'm 70, or hopefully we can all retire earlier, right? But if I'm trying to work for a very long time, I need to check. I need to audit myself fully here. And part of that auditing process includes addressing things that have been unaddressed, becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's what Pluto forces. Again, it's undeniable scars, undeniable issues that are starting to float to the surface. So this is really the question you should ask yourself. What has been left unaddressed in my life that could completely topple me later on? That is a really good question to answer right now. Because again, Pluto will reveal the weaknesses in your system, your operating system, how you're climbing the ladder, how you're climbing up the mountain. Pluto is going to show you that, there are probably some deeply rooted insecurities from childhood that are impeding your climb there. So this is your time to let it out. And this catharsis can help dissolve those walls I talked about. So Capricorn puts up walls to avoid vulnerability, but that deep emotional release brings the walls down. So like I said, that's the title of this full moon. This is when the walls come down. And as they come down, you realize that there was an intimacy and a closeness with others that had previously been kind of blocked off. And so now you are showing these vulnerabilities and saying, maybe I am incredibly ambitious and responsible, and I delay gratification. I'm very mature, all these Capricorn things. However, I could really give myself a break here, and I could sit with my inner child, or I could sit with, again, the most vulnerable part of myself and kind of nurture it for a second. And I mean, look, Pluto is not necessarily a nurturing planet, but the moon, of course, rules Cancer. So it naturally will deal with our emotional world to some extent. So it's kind of like you're just pulling out and detoxifying. And I almost think about this as an honorary Scorpio moon, right? Anytime you have a moon-Pluto conjunction, some of those Scorpio themes come up of like intense obsession, intense closeness, and deep bonding needs as a means to restore security, right? So then the question becomes, why do I need to do that? When was the security taken away? When was the safety taken away? So there's an investigation that you're on right now to figure out, okay, if I didn't deal with something during the Scorpio eclipse, the lunar eclipse there, then this is maybe a kind of a redux, another time to address it. And so you should reflect on what that is for you. Again, what has been left unaddressed so that would maybe topple you in the long run. You have to address that. And address it in the days leading up to the full moon, because I'm willing to bet it would come up anyways. So if you're not willing to deal with it internally, then there's an external situation that conjures the thought and the conversation around it again. So, so be proactive as always. Now, this full moon is also squaring Chiron in Aries, which pertains to woundedness, anger, and sensitivity. So even that doubles down on this theme of like maybe reopening old wounds. And you know, the Chiron in Aries actually kind of does point back to this idea of like bullying or being bullied. So a lot of people have moments of maybe when they were much younger being bullied for their height or some such other trait, and like maybe it only happened, maybe they were only made fun of or bullied for a year or 2 years about this or that, but and they thought they outgrew it, but it's still like maybe it hasn't been addressed again. It maybe hasn't, and it still leaves a mark. So this is really your time to really think about that. You know, it's squaring Mercury, so those sensitivities, those rejections are top of mind. And so the difficulty here is that you might have to face that and confront that, but the upside is that there is deep healing. There is deep healing and actually self-acceptance. That's where Chiron in Aries ends up. It's like starting off by kind of grappling with a sense of rejection, but eventually understanding that like I can patch up this wound, it no longer defines me. I actually accept myself for my weaknesses, and now I experience self-love. That's like the ultimate sequence that you want to be going on right now. And so going back to even the Pluto Cap thing, you know, this is almost like, again, an admission of something, an admission of your weaknesses, of your needs for nurturing, which is Cancer. So Capricorn and Cancer need to balance each other out in this axis. There is a time for work and there is a time for nourishment. They don't have to be mutually exclusive, and like you don't have to pick one or the other. So ideally there's a healthy dialectic going on there. And as you work through these wounds, do not project. There is a tendency with this square between Mercury and Chiron to project and almost seek out conflict as a result of, like, you know, rather than dealing with your wounds like responsibly, that you're just going to push it out onto other people. Do not do that. Stand in solidarity with other people and realize that everyone else on this full moon is going to be going through that in some small way or large way. Everyone's going through it. So, you know, we all have scars that cause us to do stupid things, you know, oftentimes to avoid rejection. So just acknowledge that side of yourself. What do you do? Again, what are these coping mechanisms? What do you do to avoid rejection? You know, we all have things that we've been doing our whole lives to get around that, to circumvent that rejection process. But I think this is the crossroads where it's like no longer avoidable. So again, this is your moment to present your vulnerabilities and actually be pleasantly surprised with the support and nurturing that you get. So this is almost about overcoming the fear of vocalizing and verbalizing our pain and our suffering. Because again, Cancer, with the Cancer Mercury, and on the Cancer new moon, we had a Mercury Jupiter square. People are actually almost like they have emotions like brimming up, you know, like it's really filled to the brim. So people are ready to be emotionally giving to you on this lunar cycle. So absolutely present the vulnerabilities, and I think you will be surprised with the response. Jumping into another layer of Pluto and Cap, we also have the Pluto return, part 2, happening kind of a couple nights before this full moon, late July 11th into July 12th. This is while it's retrograding. And the Pluto retrograde, to me, will you know, expose even further some systemic you know, issues throughout. And so that can include economic. We know the economy has been a little bit shaky lately with, you know, almost like record highs of inflation, or at least not all-time highs, but like, you know, very high inflation rates. You know, we also have, you know, the markets reacting to that. It's like, what is the Fed doing here? Like, are they raising interest rates? Yes, it seems like they are, but like how quickly? There's a delicate balancing act going on in the economy, and it has been in this delicate balance since 2008, right? When we've just been pumping money into the economy and then raising interest rates. Just going this back and forth. And by no means is that a purely new economic monetary, like that's not a new monetary policy, obviously. Like the idea of quantitative easing has been around for a while, but like there's a feeling here that like maybe that system is getting increasingly delicate, increasingly fragile. So economic shocks totally possible at this time, and if not, it could even just be like a subtle thing that leads up to and cascades towards late July when I talked about that Mars Uranus North Node conjunction, which would be a different video. Also, the full moon is a revelation next to Pluto in Cap. This could be revelations about institutions, being on shaky ground as well. Nothing like this is a reminder that no system is infallible, no institution is completely airtight. So Pluto is surfacing the decay institution wide. In terms of which institutions, it could be large corporations, it could be governments, it could be any number of Capricornian hierarchies. So that's what Capricorn represents: hierarchies, structures, institutions. So keep that in mind. It's like full moons are synchronistically happening on all levels of life and all altitudes. So you will, like I said, experience all these other secrets revealed in your personal life. But I think at the institutional level, we will find out that, of course, since we've known since 2008, no institution is too big to fail. That's been the mantra of Pluto and Capricorn. Too big to fail is disproven, right? Eventually, I think it'll eventually come up again, basically, especially as Pluto reaches the later degrees of Cap. Now, just to close this off, we have a Venus-Neptune square on this full moon. This creates some codependencies in relationships or confusion coming up. I don't want to emphasize that too much, but it is there. It could actually even be confusion around like what is going on with the economy. The chart ruler Saturn is playing kind of a quieter role here. It's just sitting, it's parked out in Aquarius, retrograding. We all know that since Saturn has been in retrograde, that's been limits on gatherings, basically. So, I mean, it's possible that there could be, new or renewed policies coming up that would do that again, that would limit gatherings. Mars and Taurus is pushing for more resources, by the way. And, those resources can include just making more money, having more possessions. So Mars and Taurus, it's here for the next 6 weeks. Mars and Taurus is very concerned with that. So, it's okay to be a little bit hedonistic here, to be trying to, make more money, monetize, have more, nice things in your life. That's totally fine. And then once it hits Uranus at the end of July, there's a lot of social activism in the air, I think. Also some seismic shifts and destabilizing events. So anyways, overall though, this full moon is really shaped by and accentuated by the Pluto moon conjunction. So think about that in your life. Where have you put up unnecessary walls for too long to avoid closeness with others or to avoid vulnerability? This is when they melt and dissolve. And this is when you stand, ultimately, I think, in solidarity with others and realizing that you have very human needs for nourishment and nurturing. And think about this as you're parked on base camp 1 or base camp 2 on the mountain, wherever you are in your journey. You're just temporarily sitting with your feelings, and that will build a resiliency that you need much later on. So thank you so much, and enjoy this full moon.